Imagine a murder trial where the star witness is already dead. In 1897, that's exactly what happened in a quiet corner of West Virginia. Elva Zona Hester Shu's death was sudden and mysterious, and her burial came even faster, so quickly that few had time to ask questions. But then the story took a chilling turn. Zona's ghost reportedly appeared to her mother, night after night, revealing a secret. She had been murdered by her husband, Edward. This isn't just another ghost story whispered around town. It's the only known case in American history where a ghost's testimony helped convict a killer. But what secrets were buried with Zona? And how did her mother become convinced that something was terribly wrong? A sudden death and lingering questions. The story truly begins on a cold January morning in 1897, when Elva Zona Hester Shu was found lifeless in her home. Just 3 months after her wedding to Erasmus Stribling Trout Shu, known around Greenbrier County as Edward. Their short marriage had seemed typical from the outside, but the shock of Zona's sudden death sent a ripple through the quiet town. The news spread quickly. A young bride, gone without warning. Yet it wasn't just her passing that unsettled people. It was everything that happened in the hours and days that followed. Dr. George Knapp, the local physician, arrived at the Shu home to examine Zona. He was greeted by Edward, who was visibly distraught, almost to the point of hysteria. As Dr. Knapp tried to perform his duty, he found himself blocked at every turn. Edward hovered over Zona's body, especially her head and neck, refusing to let the doctor get a clear look. The official cause of death was hastily recorded as everlasting faint, a vague term that suggested a heart attack. But within a short time, this diagnosis was changed to childbirth, even though Dr. Knapp had never treated Zona for pregnancy, and there was no evidence to support this claim. The shifting explanations for her sudden end only added to the confusion and suspicion. What made the situation even stranger was the speed with which Zona was laid to rest. Her burial took place the very next day, far more quickly than was typical, even for the era. In most cases, funerals allowed time for distant relatives to travel and for proper rituals to be observed. But in Zona's case, everything was rushed. The community barely had time to process the news before her coffin was lowered into the ground. This haste did not go unnoticed. People whispered about the odd timing and wondered why there was such a hurry to put Zona to rest. Mary Jane Hester, Zona's mother, felt a deep unease from the start. She had never trusted Edward, even before the wedding, and now with her daughter gone, her suspicions grew stronger. The quick burial, the changing story about how Zona died, and Edward's odd behavior all gnawed at her. Mary Jane knew her daughter well, too well to believe these shifting explanations. She questioned why the death certificate had been altered, why no one seemed willing to look closer, and why her daughter's body had been hidden away so quickly. Her grief was mixed with a growing certainty that something terrible had happened, something that no one wanted to admit. Edward's actions during the funeral only deepened the sense of unease. He insisted on dressing Zona himself, choosing a high-collared dress that covered her neck completely, a detail that struck many as strange. He also wrapped a scarf around her neck and arranged her head on a pillow in the coffin, claiming it was her favorite way to rest. Witnesses later recalled how Edward became agitated whenever anyone came too close to the body, especially near Zona's head and neck. This behavior seemed controlling, even obsessive, as if he was determined to keep something hidden. The community started to talk. In a small town like Greenbrier County, people notice when things aren't quite right. The combination of Edward's strange conduct, the rapid burial, and the doctor's uncertainty about the cause of death planted seeds of doubt everywhere. Whispers grew louder as neighbors recalled how Mary Jane had never approved of Edward. and how Zona's marriage had always seemed shadowed by something unspoken. People wondered about Edward's past and began to question whether Zona's death was truly as natural as it appeared. All of these doubts weighed heavily on Mary Jane. She couldn't accept the official story, not when every detail seemed to point to a hidden truth. Her determination to find answers only grew stronger as the days passed. The questions around Zona's death refused to fade, and Mary Jane found herself driven by a need for justice that went beyond what anyone else in the county could understand. As the uncertainty and suspicion in Greenbrier County deepened, Mary Jane's resolve hardened. She refused to let her daughter's story end with unanswered questions. What happened next would challenge the boundaries of belief and push the search for truth into territory that no one in the community could have imagined. A mother's ghostly pursuit of truth. Mary Jane Hester's pursuit of the truth began quietly, fueled by a mother's intuition and a sense that her daughter's story was far from over. Grief weighed on her, but even more powerful was the certainty that Zona's death was not as simple as everyone wanted to believe. Then, in February 1897, Mary Jane claimed something happened that would change everything. Her daughter's spirit began visiting her in the night. According to Mary Jane, these weren't fleeting dreams or vague feelings. Zona's ghost appeared before her, night after night, for 4 nights in a row. Each time she wore the same high-collared burgundy dress she had been buried in, the one Edward had insisted on. The spirit's presence was persistent and unmistakable. Mary Jane described the encounters in vivid detail, insisting that she was fully awake and that Zona's ghost came with a message too urgent to ignore. During these visits, Zona's spirit told her mother exactly what had happened on the day she died. She described an argument with Edward over supper, a sudden burst of anger, and the violence that followed. Zona explained that Edward had grabbed her by the neck and with brutal force broke it. She even specified the injury, saying her neck was squeezed off at the first joint. The details were graphic and specific, far more than what anyone in the community had guessed or whispered about. Armed with this chilling information, Mary Jane went to the local prosecutor, John Alfred Preston. Imagine his reaction. A mother, still deep in mourning, insisting that her daughter's ghost had revealed the truth behind her death. Preston was skeptical, as anyone would be. The idea of building a case on a ghost's testimony seemed unthinkable, but Mary Jane was relentless. She returned again and again, repeating the story with unwavering conviction, providing the same unsettling details each time. She described the argument, the way Zona's neck had been broken, and even the precise location of the injury. Preston's doubt started to waver. Maybe it was Mary Jane's persistence, or maybe it was the fact that her story never changed. The townspeople were already whispering about Edward, and the suspicions swirling around Zona's death had only grown since the funeral. Preston decided he couldn't ignore the situation. He sent deputies to re-interview key witnesses, including Dr. Knapp, the doctor who had first examined Zona's body. They began to look more closely at Edward Shu's past. The investigation revealed deeply troubling facts. Edward had been married twice before. His first wife, Allie Cutlip, divorced him for cruelty and abuse. His second wife, Lucy Ann Tritt, died under mysterious circumstances. Rumors claimed a brick had fallen from a chimney, but nothing was ever proven. These revelations painted a disturbing picture of a man with a history of violence and suspicious deaths surrounding him. With this new information, Mary Jane's story didn't seem so far-fetched. The prosecutor decided to take a step that was nearly unheard of. He ordered Zona's body to be exhumed for a proper autopsy. The examination took place in a one-room schoolhouse, far from the sterility of a modern morgue. What they found was undeniable. Zona's neck was broken, her windpipe crushed, and there were clear marks of strangulation. Her neck dislocated between the first and second vertebrae, ligaments torn, and the windpipe mashed at the front. Every detail matched what Mary Jane claimed Zona's ghost had revealed. The physical evidence finally aligned with the ghostly account. Edward Shu's reputation, already tainted by his past, now painted him as the clear suspect. It was Mary Jane's determination, fueled by her belief in her daughter's spirit, that brought the truth to light. The case was suddenly transformed from a local tragedy to something much stranger, a murder investigation sparked by a mother's unwavering faith in what she had seen and heard. With the evidence in hand and the community's attention fixed on the unfolding drama, the stage was set for a trial that would make history, not just for its outcome, but for the extraordinary way the truth was brought into the open. Conclusion. The Greenbrier ghost case stands alone in American history, a murder conviction shaped by the haunting testimony of the victim's own mother. On June 22, 1897, after just over an hour of deliberation, the jury found Edward Shu guilty and sentenced him to life in prison. This outcome was possible because Mary Jane Hester refused to let her daughter's voice be silenced forever. The verdict was met with local outrage. At one point, a lynch mob even threatened Shu, but authorities intervened. Shu died in prison of the flu in 1900, closing the final chapter of this chilling story. The case still blurs the line between true crime, folklore, and the unexplained. What do you think? Was justice served by a mother's ghost? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.